Hello to everyone in the internet. I am Nathan of Washington, and you are watching The Young Globalist. It is currently Wednesday, November 28th. How are y'all doing? So, just give me my bullet points. Alright. In the news today, Yong visits Caracas. That is, the ceremonial leader of North Korea has gone to visit the South American capital of Caracas in Venezuela. And you have to wonder what sort of meeting that they could be having over there, since they're, both communist countries. Now, I don't want to sound like, Red Scare, Red's under the bed type of person, but you know what? I don't think it's anything good, at least not good for us. Of course, it could also just be, not have anything to do with us. But the truth is, it could be that they're maybe setting up some kind of alliance. Of course, like I said, Yong is the ceremonial leader of North Korea. What exactly that job entails, we don't really know. At least I don't know, anyway. Or why they'd be sending him and not Kim Jong-un himself. Perhaps Yong is serving as like a proxy for Kim Jong-un, in the event that they feel Kim Jong-un might be in danger as he travels. Which would be a pretty classical political move to keep your leader safe. Of course, the U.S. and European sanctions have been hitting Venezuela pretty hard for human rights violations. As if the country was not poor enough, we have to hit them with sanctions. Yeah, that's nice. You behave, you best behave, or else you decide whether your people get to eat tonight. Essentially, treating the Venezuela like we're some kind of chatty mother, and they're our disobedient, bratty child. I don't even know why sanctions are even allowed. I feel like they shouldn't be. Human rights violations, okay, I get it, but it's not our country, that's not our place. Because remember, we're not just punishing their administration, we're punishing their people too, by hitting them with sanctions. And what did the people do? Nothing. I imagine there's some people who've died from starvation because of sanctions. And imagine what that makes us look like in their eyes. And that's part of how the U.S. creates terrorism, with our foreign policy. Starting our little proxy wars and starting wars in areas that have nothing to do with us. And then you wonder why, the world and other parts of the world tend to vilify the United States. And they're even talking about adding Venezuela to the states, a list of states sponsoring terrorism. What the hell does that even mean? Oh, so you mean that a country starts sponsoring anti-U.S. sentiments because the U.S. abused them previously, and then we just be like a big bully and force ourselves on them by adding them to a list? Why can't we just admit we did wrong? Sure, we can blame part of Venezuela's fall on the fact that they did communism, a system that by and large does not work. But we also sanctioned the crap out of them, started wars down there. It is partly our fault. They probably would have fallen eventually because of communism, but it would have taken them a lot longer, and they wouldn't have fallen quite as hard. So it's partly our fault. And this is how the United States creates terrorism, between uninvited proxy wars and sanctions. We're basically a bully state, and we have been since the presidency of Andrew Jackson. Moving on, Trump appeals the judge's decision on barring asylum rights to migrants who try and get into the country in between port of calls, which is a violation of policy. So, less of a crime and more of like a misdemeanor. And there are flaws in our border and migrant policy that allows that sort of thing to happen between our port of calls, and the fact that they're able to get in through legal means at all shows that there are flaws in the border security. Our policies and laws on migrants are full of all kinds of holes. Not to mention the fucking sanctuary cities that exist. There's a lot of ways that you can skirt the rules and policies and sneak into this country illegally. And it gives you all the power. Of course, some would say that the solution to that is just, oh, open up the borders, make open borders. When you live in a dangerous neighborhood, you don't unlock your front door and then leave it open so that anyone can come into your house and break and steal your shit. Open borders would essentially be no different than doing that. North America, as a continent, is a dangerous neighborhood, with South America being crime-ridden and North America being more or less the nicer part of the neighborhood. The further you're north, the further north you go, the nicer it is. As the relative level of crime in the northern part of North America is nothing compared to the southern half and towards South America. Not counting, of course, for victimless crimes, which should not be crimes at all, but that's a discussion for another time. Bottom line is, open borders are stupid, because that's just an invitation for illegal migrants and abuses of all kinds. Criminals and drug cartels just sneaking on in. That's why we need vetting. We don't necessarily need a wall so much as we just need to tighten up our security and improve our policy. Maybe even change out our policies altogether and create new ones. And you know, it's this absolute massive mess of legalism and red tape we have in this country is the most likely reason why our border policies suck. We can't just blame everything on the Democrats. True, they're a big part of it, but you know what? Not everything is them. This country is drowning in all these different laws and all these different policies and all this bureaucratic red tape. And that's probably why our border policy is just so completely broken and flawed. Like, for instance, the fact that the president can't just ban asylum seekers or ban their asylum rights, when a federal judge can just slam that gavel. The fact that Trump even thinks he can do that proves that the federal chain of command, so to speak, and states' rights is a little screwy. You know, the ebb and flow is a little chaotic. There's a lot of unnecessary bureaucracy and laws that sometimes contradict other laws, and the fact that politicians think they can just skirt the Constitution in the name of security or whatever else they want to do, when in fact you know that they have no respect for our Constitution at all. We need to reform our legal system and sort and plug the holes in our border policy. America's got a lot of work to do on improving its legal state and making the laws function more, more efficiently and less encumbered. Now then, in other news, Russia deploys a new missile system on the Crimean Peninsula. This comes after Ukraine begins a state of martial law after 3 vessels seized by Russians. The missile system will be ready by the end of the year. The Ukraine instituted martial law after martial law for 30 days, for an entire month, or at least the better part of one, or more than a month, depending on what part of the year you're in. I don't know. That whole Gregorian calendar is a bit screwy, but yeah, apparently they instituted martial law after 3 of their vessels were captured. Rising tensions between the two. I think it's pretty clear that Russia annexed Crimea and then started putting shit there for the purpose of possibly intimidating Ukraine. There's reason to believe that that was the primary reason. So some pretty straight up bully tactics. Kind of sounds familiar. The U.S. Oh, but anyway. And again in other news, Trump again threatens to shut down the government over wall funding. The amount is now $5 billion, and resting quite comfortably in that range. $5 billion to build his border wall. The House of Reps refused to fund him properly, and he keeps threatening to shut down the government. It's a never-ending cycle. And it's not looking so far like either one of them is really going to deliver on their threats. The House keeps threatening investigation. Trump keeps threatening a government shutdown. You know what? They're obviously not going to fund him. So I'd say Trump should just go ahead and shut down the government. Make good on the threat. It'll really show that he actually means business. Maybe shut down the government for a good long while. Just slow everything down and just really punish the Democratic House of Reps. Make his position very clear. As president, he has that power. Anyway, that's about all, folks. Tschüss.